It was just rubble.
I
That was
see.
left.
So at least you could have seen the compound wall on one side.
Yeah.
And then there was another bungalow similar to Guru Prasad but much smaller and not in good shape or condition.
Yeah.
So in that building there was one person staying there, but he seemed to be a very mysterious person because the building would always be shut, the doors would be shut, the windows, the ventilators, everything would be shut.
And this would be summer season when
Yeah,
people would be there to
come
see it.
summer, winter, rain, whatever, you never saw anything open there. As if the place was totally deserted or unoccupied, but there was a man staying in there. So everybody was quite mystified by this and intrigued because what on earth is this person doing there all alone? So one day Baba was sitting on the front veranda and we were again having some chat, and Baba happened to cast his glance on the roadside, and there was this man coming out from the gate, and what he would do, he would come out at a particular time and come out from his bungalow and down his approach road, go on the main road, go past Guru Prasad to we don't know where. And he would have one satchel in his hand, and he would, I think, wear a hat and look down, never saw to his left or right, just with his gaze on the ground, would walk by, that's all.
Now, was this an Indian or was this
No, he was a foreigner. So Baba says, look, that man is going again. So he said, Aloba was there amongst the Manli. So he tells Aloba, go and find out about him. Who is he, what he's doing. As soon as Baba just mentioned this, Aloba was immediately electrified, as it were. And he swung into action. There was quite a tall banister all around the veranda. And so instead of going via the porch and the steps, he just swung over the banister. A sort of somersault, or a hand.
Yeah.
So what do you call that? A swing?
Cartwheel.
Yeah, cartwheel. Over the banister and just jumped down 10 feet below on the ground and started to run. And he jumped down the approach road, and then the gate was shut, Guru Prasad, because Baba didn't want anybody to come. It was seclusion time. So there was another row of tall railings, You must have seen those at least in Guru Prasad.
I can't remember.
There was a low wall and then metal banisters or railing with spears on top. So again, Aloba did a cartwheel on that. And before this man could come there, he suddenly materialized before him, That man must have got a shock. Who is this person suddenly appearing in front of him? And Baba says, look at this fellow. He gives me a heart attack, To give him any order is a dangerous thing. And really, Aloba, we were all amazed at the way he just made for that guy. And then that's the last we saw of Aloba. Then we don't know what happened. But shortly thereafter he came back and he had brought all the information that one would want to have of a person. So his name was Kirkpatrick. He was an Irishman. He was living all alone in this house. And he had this work in the bank where he always goes, and all the information that one would want to have. Aloba could extract from him. I don't know how. And yes, so this man was named Kirkpatrick, and he was like a must at that time, And I think the first Western must that we might have known ever, because he was a total recluse. He never spoke with anyone. He never allowed anybody into his house. And at night, people used to hear quaint sounds coming from the house. They didn't know what it was all about. So it was all quite mysterious.
But somehow he managed to keep a job anyway.
No, he didn't have a job. And in fact, he was coming upon very hard days. Yes, so I think it was the time when he was going to require some help. And that was the time that Baba just very casually got acquainted with him, And probably it was the time for him to get contact of Baba. So then it was known that he was in dire financial difficulty. He was unable to pay the rent, and the landlord was troubling him. So much so that the landlord had cut off the electricity and the water supply to the building, because he was not able to pay the rent, and neither was the landlord able to evict him because of very stringent laws at the time about the house rent laws. The rent control was there, and it was highly weighted in favor of the tenants. So the poor landlords are still having a very rough time with these old tenements. So what he did was to just cut off all this so that he would be forced to leave the place. But he just clung on, So one day he comes over while Baba was in the Mandli hall and wants to come in. So Baba allows him to come in, and then he very respectfully asks Baba permission to come and wash himself, because the landlord had cut off his water supply, and Baba very graciously allowed that. And gradually he began to come closer to Baba. So Baba would allow him to come and sit in the Mandli hall, and he would sit in one place very unobtrusively.
While the Mandali business was going on, he could sit there. So in the later years, we would sometimes find him sitting there, but rather unkempt, But still he was clean at that time. But later on, it became much worse, because he was getting more and more into financial difficulties. So much so that then he requested some help just to meet his daily food requirements. So Baba then ordered Meherji to see to his needs. So then his needs were very simple. All he ate was a little bhakri and chickpea flour, cooked chickpea flour, it's called besan in the vernacular. So that was his favorite dish, and he said, if I could get just this little food, and if you could arrange for that, I would be very happy. So Meherji readily did that and would look after him, and this would go on. And for years this went on. Afterwards, and each time Baba would come, he would be there, and Baba would look after his welfare, ask Meherji to be
to take care of him. A sort of duty was given to Meherji. And after Baba dropped his body, then this continued, And later I joined Meherji in his factory. So Meherji delegated the job to me. Yeah, so every month I would go and give him this little amount of about 30 rupees or something. And he would be very satisfied with that. And I would ask him if he required anything else, he should let me know. And he said, "No, son, this is quite enough for me, I'm happy." But the thing is that eventually the landlord succeeded in evicting him. Some case was there and the landlord won the case, and so he was thrown out of the house physically with all his belongings. They were all in the compound. So the Christian mission who ran a poor home, they came to his rescue and they took him to the poor home and got him settled into a small room. So the size of the room must be about 10 feet by 8 feet or something. A small little room. And there were rows of these rooms for all these poor people who were totally without support, So the mission ran this poor home. And so I would go there to give him the monthly food allowance, as it were. And he would, whenever I would go, he would tell me, you won't fail to come the next month, huh? So I said, no, don't ever have any qualms about that. Baba will always look after you. So don't worry. If you need anything further, do let me know. So his demands were very few.
He never did want more.
Then about a year or so later, he asked for 20 rupees or so more because the prices had gone up. So just sufficient for him for the day's food. Yeah. And the whole room was just full of trunks which were filled with books. So much so that he hadn't even space to lie down in his room. So I would find him, he would be sitting on the edge of one of the trunks in the doorway and with a book in his hand reading all day long. Yeah, that was his occupation.
How old a man was he?
Past his 60s, I think. Yeah. But very frail. Something like the constitution of Balnatu. Frail, thin, and very, very anemic complexion, because he was not looking after himself at all. Yeah, despite my requesting him to be careful. Yeah. And eventually he was getting more and more frail. One day his man came and told me he should be taken to hospital because he is not well. So I went to tell him that, and he said, "No, son, I am all right." His trousers were all wet. So I said, and I saw those. So he says he saw me seeing that. So he says, "This is not incontinence." He tells me, huh? Yeah. It's just a little discharge I'm having because of a sore here. So I said, "But this requires treatment. I'll take you to some good hospital, wherever you want, in a good clinic." No, I'm all right here. I'll let you know when the time comes. I'll send word to you. You don't worry about me. This was the type of man he was. And eventually the time did come when he sent for me, and that day he said, "Now, son, the time has really come. I need to be hospitalized. So get me into some good place." So then I got an ambulance, and there was a nice mission hospital in which Meherji's daughter was working at one time, and they knew Meherji and all that. So I got him into the ambulance, and he was all
full of muck, there was discharge of pus and all that. I don't know what had happened. And it had all gone into his shoes, and his shoes were stuck to his soles. And I had to get out those stuck shoes.
He just wouldn't even clean himself?
No, he was just sitting there. No interest at all. So when I took him to the hospital, and he was in charge of the people there, and they were all missionaries, so they were doing all this service for the poor. And when I went later to meet the person who was in charge of him, he said, "What a man you have brought here. It took me 12 pails of water to wash him clean. He was he was full of maggots." So, how is it that you brought him so late? So I told him that this is what it was. I was after him for a long time. It was with difficulty that we could convince him and all that. So he says he's in a very poor state, and we fear for his life and all that. But he was, for the first time I saw him very clean and nice and washed, lying in the bed. And I went to see him, and he says, "Son, you have done very well. I am really happy now. Nothing. Just will I get my food here? I would like to have an egg every day. Could you arrange for that?" I said, "Anything you want, tell me. I'll arrange for it." So I told the staff not to spare any expenses. Whatever he needed should be given to him. So they agreed to do it. Of course, we were paying the bills and all that. But he seemed to be doing well. But all of a sudden, he started to develop temperature because the infection had spread into his bloodstream, Yes, and he got septicemia. And he suddenly became very serious, and in a couple of days later, he just died. So then we arranged to take him to the burial grounds, and Meherji was with me, and Meherji requested it was the Christian burial ground. It's a very nice place in Pune, on the Pune-Satara highway. Yes. So a huge place is there with gardens, and so it had been dug and it was ready, and we took the body there. And so Meherji said to the Padri who was to do the final services that we would like to read our Master's prayer to him. So he said, "You are free to do what you want." And so the Parvardigar prayer was read by Meherji while his body was lying there. And then we shouted Baba's Jai and all that. And then the body was lowered. So till the very end, Baba saw to him.
There was never any indication that he had relatives who were interested in him or anything like that?
No, he was very well to do at one time. He was a secretary to the parson, to the bishop in Pune or something. And held a very high post in the clergy, and then thereafter he had told about his life, but I forget all the details. But he was quite well to do. His father was a big shot, but then they lost all contact with him. Eventually he was totally decrepit. And Baba then took over, as it were. So till the very last he was looked after.
Well, there we see Baba as a good neighbor.
Yeah, that's right. Quite
the man next door.
So he was a real must, I tell you. What else? How could you just explain in this sort of behavior?
Right. Did he express it? Did he ever talk about God, or he wouldn't?
No,
not
nothing.
especially.
No, he was very quiet.
Yeah.
Only would speak when spoken to. That was he would come to the Pune center also.
Oh,
Yeah.
did he?
Yeah, every Monday when the center was there, he would invariably come, while he was in good health.
Yeah.
But later on then he stopped coming.
Do you think he...
But sit quietly in a corner, never talk to anybody, never did anything.
and then he would just go...
Go away, yeah.
So that was his social event.
So he must have loved Baba silently. We don't know what happened inside. That was Baba's internal link with him. This was the external that we saw. The filth and grime. Internally, we don't know what. So I think it happened during these years. I'm not sure whether it was this year or what, but on these quiet times that we got into touch with Kirkpatrick, our neighbor. Baba's neighbor at Guru Prasad. And Aloba would call him Kirkpatrick. Karak means stiff. So he would walk quite straight and stiff, looking down on the ground and just go back and forth to his place. So that was the episode of Kirkpatrick. Yeah, and after this program was over, as I said, Bapu Sahib Shinde was a great help to us. But just before Baba left, he seemed to catch on a very bad infection called pemphigus, and that's a very incurable type of skin problem that you get. Yeah.
Skin problem?
Yeah, it's a very rare type of disease that one usually gets. And so he was not very well, and Baba said, my nazar will be on you. Baba was there still at Guru Prasad and consoled him. But then after Baba left, Bapu Sahib's health began to deteriorate very fast, and this thing began to spread all over his body. So he would get these terrible sores all over him, and there would be discharge from those sores. So he had to be hospitalized, and so we took him to Dr. Grant, because Dr. Grant was then known to us because of his association with Baba and all that. And he was being well looked after. Then he then was given a discharge. He went home and he neglected the treatment that was prescribed. Some cortisone or what, I don't know. And some steroid therapy was there, but there was really no cure for that. And eventually he became very serious, so he had to be re-hospitalized and brought back to the hospital, and in a month or two then he died. Yeah. So we lost a great stalwart in Baba's cause. Yeah.
Who had been so helpful with the darshan.
Very, very helpful, yeah. Financially, even with his own physical effort. And he was a nice, tall, well-built person. But within no time, he just passed off, yeah. And Baba sent a very good telegram that he shared in Baba's suffering, and he was very fortunate, yeah. And that he has come to me. Some such message was sent by telegram.
Around this time, Charles Purdom also died, as I recall.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to do with that?
No.
When that came to Baba's attention?
I think a few months later, Charles Purdom died. And another person was this Koduri Krishna Rao, who built Meherasthana, in Kovur.
Yeah.
So all these three stalwarts died very soon after each other,
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it was rather tragic that we lost these big Baba workers. This Koduri Krishna Rao was a very well-to-do person in Andhra. He owned several luxury yachts, and these would ply on the Godavari River. And Baba, in fact, stayed on one of his yachts during the Andhra tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be away from the crowds, because
He spent the night there.
yeah, so the crowds would never leave Baba alone. Day and night it would be just noise and clustering all around. So to escape from all that, Baba was on the boat for the night. on this Koduri Krishna Rao's boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know how Baba, did he sleep well on a boat?
I don't know. I wasn't on those tours. But something very funny happened on that one incident I remember. It's given an account somewhere that something happened, and the Koduri Krishna Rao was to supply breakfast to Baba. So the breakfast was sent, and the boys who were to give the breakfast for Baba forgot to do that, and instead served the mandli, So Baba was furious, as it were. And when they came on the shore, then Baba suddenly put up a big pretense, of great anger with, I think with Koduri Rao. And he said, have him tied up and throw him into the river. So the mandli ran after him and he began to run. They wanted to tie him up, Some very funny, humorous incident occurred. And then, of course, Baba forgave him and all that.
I seem to recall that when that story was told here one time, someone said that there's a film of Baba at that very time even.
On the boat?
On the boat, and when he was getting angry.
Oh, really?
I don't know if Baba's actually saying tie him up and throw him.
Yeah.
But right at that time.
I've never seen that. Probably it must be in that Andhra tour film.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Just a moment. Like
I don't seem to recollect that.
I don't remember
on the
either,
boat.
But I remember that coming up in a discussion here.
Yeah, it was a very funny incident. I don't recall the details. But it was something like that. Yeah, so we lost all these three in quick succession.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, Baba's Guru Prasad stay in 1965, and I don't recollect any other important incidents at that time. And of course, nobody was allowed to see him after that first week of May.
Actually, that was the last real public darshan, wasn't it?
Yes, that was the last time. Thereafter, there wasn't anything of that scale, at least. Yeah. So then Baba left, and I think this time there was not even a farewell, if I remember rightly, at the Ban Gardens or anything. Yeah, so that there was no farewell, and Baba just left quietly. And of course the usual winding up of Guru Prasad, and then Baba going to Meherazad, and that was, I think, 1965. I don't recollect any other incidents.
The December darshan got cancelled, and then
and then the December darshan got cancelled, And Baba let out a circular that his Western lovers should remain resigned to his will, and that Baba would give his darshan to them somewhere, sometime. And that was later in 69, I think, that Baba kept that promise. And he really gave a darshan, although he was not physically visible, but that darshan was an immense and a very great occasion. In 1969. Yes.
Was it during those times where Baba was back at Meherzad in 65? Were your contacts with him more or less the same? That is, letters now and then about points of business, and were you ever called during those during 65 to go to Meherzad for a day or two? I mean, that seems to come up in the earlier.
Don't recollect. Might have been. But did I mention the 1965 Baba's birthday program? I think I missed that.
Yeah.
In Meherzad.
Yeah.
Baba's.
You didn't mention that.
Yeah. So at Meherzad, Baba, there was a nice, interesting incident that occurred. Of course, Baba's birthday was there, and as usual, it was a quiet affair. The monthly gathering in the hall and just loudly crying out Baba's Avatar Mehr Baba Ki Jai 7 times, and the prayers and all that. But then during the day, suddenly Begum Akhtar again came along. Yeah, so she requested that she should be given a chance to sing before Baba.
She just showed up?
Yeah, that morning she showed up. I don't remember whether she asked prior permission, but I think it was a surprise visit or something.
I read this morning it was a surprise visit, but I thought this was...
It was a surprise visit.
Yeah.
It's hazy now in my recollection. So there she was, and Baba, of course, was very happy, although it was a disturbance in his seclusion.
Yeah.
But then she pleaded with him, and Baba agreed. And then she gave a few ghazals, and Baba, of course, thoroughly enjoyed them. It was a fitting birthday present for Baba. The topmost ghazal singer of the country. Just madly in love with Baba. And all these years she wasn't available, When Baba wanted her to sing so much, it was difficult to get her. But when the time had come, as Baba said, the time has to come when one could come to him. And now she was craving to be in his presence.
What trouble she must have gone to cancel whatever else was to be there for
she was a very busy person, in great demand everywhere in the country. So attending to these programs, then cancelling some and coming here for Baba's birthday occasion and giving some good performance for Baba's birthday. And of course then there was the Nagar Center program, and there she went and sang for Baba. Yes.
At the Nagar Center?
At the Nagar Center in the evening. So the other interesting incident concerned the Nagar Center, which I forgot to mention. That the Nagar Center thought of holding a procession in honor of Baba's birthday for the first time, a public procession. So they told Baba about this, and Baba was happy. And so preparations were made, and a big cutout of Baba was prepared, and these posters were there to be stuck all along the route of the procession. So now it's the day is approaching, because it was on Baba's birthday evening, the procession. What happens in Meherzad after Begum Akhtar left, and then towards evening, Erach and I start to go out for our evening walks. At that time, Erach used to have long walks, Actually, Baba's orders that we all must go for walks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So here we make ready to go, and just we go a few paces, and it becomes very cloudy, and it's there's thunder and lightning, and the sky is terribly overcast, and we thought that it would be safe to just come back. So hastily we retrace our steps. Before we could reach home here, it started to pour, cats and dogs. And we had a mighty big shower. I think the first and only on Baba's birthday here. Such a shower that there was a flood in the river down below. And several animals and goats were washed away, and there was quite a lot of damage and destruction. A sudden flood, unprecedented. Now here it's pouring rain, and Baba started to worry and fret about the procession which was to take place at Nagar. So Baba's feeling extremely anxious about it, how they will go for the procession if it is going to rain there. And Bhau is keeping night watch. So Baba keeps sending Bhau outside, into the rain to find out if there is any news from Nagar. I think sending some boy to telephone there from the pumping station and find out whether it's raining there. And Bhau gets soaking wet each time he goes out. And Baba is totally oblivious of this and keeps sending him all out and back and forth. And Bhau is wet outside and boiling hot inside. Here Baba is totally neglecting me, and there they are having fun there. And word came that there are no rains in Nagar for the present. The clouds are holding up. And Baba is telling Kekoba to pray that there would be no rain there. And there's quite a tense atmosphere going around. And it's pouring here, And Bhau is so furious that Baba is purposely sending him out. But then suddenly Baba tells Bhau to bring a towel that was lying in his room, and Baba starts to wipe him. And Bhau says that all that anger and resentment that had built up in him, it just suddenly evaporated with this gesture of Baba. So Baba had a way of stirring up things and then bringing things down to normal again, very fast. So it so happened that the procession started, and they had a very good time. They all enjoyed the procession immensely. There was a lot of dancing and bhajans and programs all along the route. And in a leisurely fashion, they all then returned back to the center, oblivious of what was happening here. And it is said that after the procession returned and was back home safely, that the cloud burst happened there also. Yeah. So Baba was holding back the reins, as it were.
That was what seems like one of the recurrent themes of the Advent, was Baba fretting and worrying about his lovers.
Yeah.
But rain also.
Rain and this, fretting with his lovers. As I said, Ginde, going up the hill, and Baba
having a grand time. Baba fretting and worrying. And the procession here, the procession, and like a
everybody enjoying there in the procession, and here everybody on tenterhooks. And Baba would make the whole place here run round and round in circles. Nobody felt at ease until the whole situation had diffused. Stir up things. He was accomplishing so many things by all this thing. So this was a very remarkable incident that occurred. The first procession of Ahmednagar.
Yeah.
And thereafter, each year they would have these processions for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
So this carried on until then the policy changed and they discontinued. But this was a precedent that was set in Baba's time.
Yeah.
And the rains must inaugurated.
But the rains mercifully held on until the procession.
That's right.
Who were the people in the Ahmednagar Center who were leading it at that point? The sort of driving force?
My uncle was there, Pilu Mama, then Sarosh, Vilu. They used to be taking great interest in Nagar Center. Bhagirath was there. Yeah. Then Thade, Rangole. All these people were
Thade was there already?
Yeah. Thade, probably he may not have been there because he was, I think, still in service. And I don't think he had settled in Nagar by then. But Rangole was here.
Yeah.
He was in the ST service, ST bus service. So he was one of the residents here. Yeah. So all these people were there in the and Adi, of course. Adi.
Right,
Yeah.
he had a special connection.
Yeah.
There's a very nice message on the wall of the Ahmednagar Center that Baba had given to them.
The opening, I think.
Yes.
I think 1 year prior to Pune Center being opened, Baba opened the Ahmednagar Center also. So these are the two centers
He himself.
in the world that Baba inaugurated with his own hands. So first the Ahmednagar Center and then a year later the Pune Center. So these were the two centers. So that was the eventful year of 1965, and I don't recollect any other important incidents at that time. And then, of course, we come on to 1966, and again I am back at Meherazad for my usual annual stay, and I think we should stop here because it's almost 5 o'clock.
That's right.
Yeah. So continue.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.